Alright, what is up, you guys? I'm here with the Summerslam Complete Anthology Review Part 3. So we're going to go for 1990. We're still in Volume 1, of course. No poster artwork for 1990 on here, unfortunately. Alright, so there is a lot to go over here. You can see all these chapters here. We have your disc artwork, 1990, of course. Disc 3 in Volume 1. Alright, so we had the opening match of the Rockers versus Power and Glory. Then we had Mean Gene interviewing Mr. Perfect with Bobby the Brain Heenan. And then he also interviews Texas Tornado. And then we have Mr. Perfect versus the Texas Tornado for the Intercontinental Championship. Mean Gene interviews Mr. Perfect with Bobby Heenan. Sensational Queen Sherry versus Sapphire. I was always a Sensational Sherry fan. And then we have an interview with Dusty Rhodes. And then Tito Santana versus the Warlord. And then we have Sean Mooney interviewing Demolition. And then another interview with Heart Foundation by Mean Gene. And of course, that leads to the World Tag Team Championship. Demolition versus the Heart Foundation. Great match. I'm a huge fan of both of them. So it's kind of really cool to see that. Then we have an interview with Legion of Doom and Heart Foundation. And then Sean Mooney attempts to interview Demolition. Another interview with Sensational Queen Sherry, Big Boss Man. Sean Mooney interviews Nikolai Volkov and Hacksaw Jim Duggan. And then yet another interview with Earthquake and Dino Bravo with Jimmy Hart. And then once again another interview with Jake the Snake Roberts. And then we have Jake the Snake Roberts versus Bad News Brown. Special guest referee Big Boss Man. So yeah, a lot of interviews there. Kind of a big gap between matches there. Back then they can get away with that. You know, it was still entertaining back then. And great promos, great interviews. Gotta love Mean Gene. So, and speaking of Mean Gene, we have another interview with Demolition. And then we have Brother Love segment with Sergeant Slaughter. Sean Mooney interviews Orient Express with Mr. Fuji. And then Mean Gene attempts to interview Sapphire. And then we have Nikolai Volkov and Hacksaw Jim Duggan versus the Orient Express. Mean Gene interviews Dusty Rhodes. And then another interview with Macho King Randy Savage. And then here we have Dusty Rhodes versus the Macho King Randy Savage. Sean Mooney interviewing Million Dollar Man Ted DiBiase with Virgil. And then we have Mean Gene interviewing Hulk Hogan and Big Boss Man. And that segues into Hulk Hogan versus the Earthquake. Sean Mooney interviewing Ravishing Rick Rude. And then we have another few interviews here. We have Dusty Rhodes. We have Lord Alfred Hayes describes the Steel Cage Assembly. Mean Gene interviews Hulk Hogan. Sean Mooney interviews Earthquake and Dino Bravo. And then we have a final interview here with the Ultimate Warrior, which leads to the Steel Cage match for the WWE Championship, the Ultimate Warrior versus Ravishing Rick Rude. This is a very enjoyable pay-per-view for me. I love 1990 as a year in total, and 91. You know, I love the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. One of my favorite eras in wrestling. So, you know, you have a lot of great interviews, great promo work, and a solid main event with the Steel Cage match for the WWE title. So overall, I think this is a better event than 90 or 89, even 88. So to me, this was the best SummerSlam so far. But a lot of people consider 91 to be the greatest of all time. And I disagree with that personally. I definitely say top 5. But we will get to 91 next. So for now, this has been the DVD Freak. Peace out.